Right, so we are continuing with the amazing teachings of Rebbe Nachman of Breslov, Sichot HaRan. Tonight we're learning Torah Samech, paragraph 60, and tonight's Torah is about building. It's about how to build things, how to make something meaningful in life in the way that it's not going to fall, it's not going to just collapse. And this teaching was actually inspired by some tragedy, apparently. He writes as follows: Sichot HaRan Zichron Levracha be'is she'er ma'isa bekilas Kodesh Breslov shenizeko yalda achas bebayis shechafru bo v'asu binyanim chadashim. That there was a tragedy in Breslov that they were building some building, and something collapsed, and there was a girl that was killed. And besides that girl that was killed, there were many other people that were injured. So like that, so Rebbe Nachman took this as a opportunity to speak about the concept of building and the danger involved with building. And he says as follows: I looked into the building industry, and I came to the conclusion that it's not a good thing to go into. That people that are involved with building, I don't think he would say the same thing. I mean, like nowadays it's something else entirely. But like he was looking at his time, and he did not recommend going into the building industry. And he says that he notices that nobody gets out clean, nobody gets out scot-free. Afilo akum, even goyim, it's not good for goyim either. It's like people do it because like you can't have a world if people aren't going to make buildings. So Hashem sends people the inspiration, Hashem sends people the desire to do it, but the truth is that it's really not a good idea. And he would not recommend his students going into the building industry. But like there's lots of nuances about this. But at the end of the day, if you're going to get involved with building, then it's not going to be good at the end. A second. He brings from a Gemara in Ivamis. It says that anybody that gets involved with building, the Gemara says 2,000 years ago, anybody gets involved with building will become poor. The word miskin Lashon Kodesh means poor. Mismaskin hu Lashon aniyus, v'gam Lashon sakana. But the word mismaskin comes from the word sakana. Sakana means danger. That is like there's a certain danger of building. That there's a story a couple of months ago. Like there was like this horrible tragedy that some guy from Bnei Brak that he was building and he fell off from a high floor and he died. And like he was like a father of like 7 kids. It was a very when you're building, you're endangering yourself. So you're putting yourself into danger. So he says that's what it means is mismaskin. If you're always like Bibinian, is mismaskin. So this is based on the Medrash that it says that when the Jewish people in Egypt, when they were building Arei Miskenais, so it says they were building Arei Miskenais. And what's Miskenais? So it has this word that's misken, sakana. So and in the Medrash, there's 2 opinions. One says that it means that it causes them to be poor, and the other one is that it causes them to be endangered. Okay, so he's saying that there was this tragedy in Breslov, and because of this tragedy in Breslov, so he wanted to tell his students about the industry of building, and he said that building is a dangerous thing, and he said like first of all like actually don't do it. Now once again, like I don't know exactly what it means nowadays. He seems to be saying that it's more of he was focusing on the danger aspect. And so I don't think he would have any issue with the person being the investor, the guy that's the building, buying a plot and hiring other people to build. But like he's saying, like don't be the guy that's actually on the building sites and the sakana kan bonim, that it's a danger. So I think he would probably say that you shouldn't be involved in things which are in something which is physically endangering your life. But that's not his point. This is really just his way of coming to the reason why he's talking about this. And he says it, and then he says as follows. You want to say something?
Is specifically actually speaking about tifkud of building, of being constructed?
He's talking about 250 years ago.
If somebody's placing themselves in...
He's specifically talking about the actual physical thing about building a building. in his reality of 250 years ago, that it was dangerous, it was physically dangerous, and people could die. And I'm adding that it's still dangerous, so it's very possible that he would still say not to do it. But he was coming from the element, from the perspective of the fact that it's dangerous. But then he gets to his point, and he says, "Va'ikar hu hanachas hayesod." And the most important thing of a building is the hanachas hayesod, is the basis, the foundation of the building. That is the thing that makes or breaks the success of the building. You have to know, when it comes to the foundations, you have to know when to do it, and which kind of trees you need to, which kind of wood you need to use. And it's impossible to know. So now, this is really his point. He says that the reason why it's so difficult to build a building is because the secret to build a building is to understand about the yesod, is to understand about the foundation. And it's really confusing, it's really complex. To understand exactly how to build the foundation, it is very, very deep, nuanced wisdom. And if you don't know how to do it, then somebody's going to get killed. And the building's going to fall because the foundation isn't strong enough. So let's. I want to read through the rest of his Torah. It's somewhat of a long Torah, and then we'll go back and analyze what he's really trying to say. So he continues like this. And this is connected, he says, to the fact that here in Ukraine, so they don't have a lot of fruits and vegetables. They have, like in Ukraine, they just had potatoes and onions. That's. They didn't have citrus fruits. They didn't have it was a whole thing. Like every sukkah, there was a whole thing. Like we're going to get an esrog. Like there's it was impossible to grow an esrog in Ukraine, and they certainly didn't have blueberries and strawberries and all the nice things that we have, and nectarines and plums, and so he says, you know why? It's all because they don't have the roots. It's all because they don't have the foundation. And he says a very fascinating thing. He says, based on the Medrash, it says that in the center of the universe, where's the center of the universe? Kodesh Kodeshim, right? At the middle of the Beis Hamikdash is the Even Shasiyah, and the place of the Kodesh Kodeshim is the place where the Aron HaKodesh was, where the Holy Ark was, and so there's also a rock there which is called the Even Shasiyah. Even Shasiyah, yeah. And it says, why is it called the Even Shasiyah? Shemisham Hushtat Ha'olam. That is because from the entire world was from there. Meaning that in terms of when Hashem created the world, so he first created a spot, a point, and then that point expanded into a globe. But that first spot, that was Even Shasiyah. That was in the Kodesh Kodashim. So, and that's really what it means. Like there's a famous midrash that says that Yerushalayim is the center of the universe. Right. So. Also, there's a medrash that says that it's the highest place in the universe. It's the highest place in the world. And so everybody asks, what do you mean it's the highest place? But there's Mount Everest. And so somebody explained that really, where's the top of an orange? The top of an orange is where it's connected to the tree, right? So where's the world? Where's the universe? Where's the reality connected to this tree? Where is it coming from? It's coming from God. It's coming from the beyond. So where's the place? Where's the top of the apple? Where's the place that the apple is connected to the Ein Sof? Where is it connected to the beyond? Where is it connected to Hashem? So that's the Kodesh Kodashim. So there's the entire, the earth itself is obviously a globe, but the entire universe, you could look at the entire galaxy as some globe, as some reality that is connected, it's in a bag, and it's connected, it's from a stem, connected to the Ein Sof, it's connected to Hashem. And where is that? That's in the Kodesh Kodashim. Right, so that's why it's actually the highest place, right? So anyway, so the Even Shasiyah, so Misham Hushtas Ha'olam, the entire galaxy stems from the Even Shasiyah. So he says that from the Even Shasiyah, from Yerushalayim, so there's this whole infrastructure of roots, and the roots go out, And if you would know how to manipulate the roots going underground from the Evan Shasia, so then you would be able to get all of the proper nutrients and all the different genes from all the different places in the world, and if you will be able to manipulate this infrastructure of the roots of the world, so then you will be able to grow any fruit, any place in the world. And it's all because of these roots, of these giddim. So he says, Shlomo Melech alav shalom, shu chacham gadol, v'yeleh kol hagiddim b'fatos hayonateh, it's called pri, k'mo shedasher b'sein zerach, and that's how he explains the midrash that says that Shlomo Melech, so he was able to have every fruit possible grow in Israel. And it's because he has this wisdom of, I don't know, what fruits don't grow in Israel? I don't know. Okay, so
whatever, they export more than.
Okay, so there's some things that don't grow in Israel, but Shlomo Melech was able to have a blue and white. Corn. So
Corn is not grown in Israel?
I was taught that corn is Native American. You know.
Israel, but I say 85% of everything you grow here is actually exported.
So it says, "V'gam medinas halalu, im hayodim hilach hagida bepatos heita v'yochel nita gam kem kol peres she'en g'delim kan, gam alfa pish hagid halach medinas mesukol pitpozam." Okay, so yes, this is the secret of fruits. V'yaken gam kam medinas el yochel yos k'shmzach ki ma'at yochel nita gam kem shara peres. Fine. So he says that all the fruits, that the ability to grow fruit, it all depends on the roots. It all depends on the yesod, on the foundation. Right? It's not that if you have the right foundation, then you can plant the right tree, you can build the right building, because everything is dependent on the foundation. And then he says, he says there's another thing that bothers him, and that is that people tend to think that as generations evolve, that they get smarter, and they think that we're so much brighter than the generations before us.
Sorry.
And so he says, that the generations before us were actually much, much wiser than our generations. They revealed the essence of wisdom. Because they prepared everything, so that's why the future generations are able to come to greater understandings. But it's only because if we wouldn't have had the generations before that made the foundations, then we wouldn't have been able to get to what we get. They already had these foundations, they already had these yesodis, which was already ready for them, and then they were able to just make something out of, bring it to its next step. So he says that this is the same thing when it comes to wisdom. That the hardest part of wisdom, of bringing wisdom, is developing the yesodis, is developing the foundations, and that's why the later generations. There's a term that is brought down in Pesach, but it really, I'm pretty sure it comes from Newton, from Isaac Newton, that he said that the reason why I'm able to see further is because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. And so it's brought down in Sifas Mishpat, uses this with regarding the fact that we're able to understand things that the Rishonim, that the earlier generations weren't. So he uses the term a midget on the shoulders of a giant. Nanas agabi chacham, like a midget on the top of a giant. That if you have a giant and you have a midget who's standing on the shoulders, so he can actually see further than the giant was able to see. It doesn't mean that he's bigger than the giant. Just because he's standing on the shoulders of the giant, so that's why he's able to see a little bit further. Okay, and so that's how the Nesivos explains that we're able to come to conclusions. We're able to come to understanding in Torah or anything that they weren't able to in previous generations. But it's not because we're greater than them; they're actually much smaller than them. We're actually midgets. But because the people before us, they've made the foundations, and we're able to stand on their shoulders because we're able to read their writings. We're able to take their mind frames. So that's why we're able to understand things that they weren't able to explain, to understand. Okay. Now he continues. And this is his last point. Okay, and that's why there's things that you have to be very careful not to reveal them. Because there's things that if you reveal them, then in future generations they can bring it to the wrong place, and they can come to avodah zarah. They can come to making horrible mistakes. Because there's certain things sometimes when you develop an idea further, so you can sometimes develop it in the wrong way. And so that's why when you're actually revealing a foundation, you have to be very careful which foundations to reveal. Because if you're going to reveal something that the people aren't going to take it the right way, they're going to develop it incorrectly, then you can come to avodah zarah, he says.
It's almost a question of
Yeah, sure. And so he says, and he brings an example. It says that there's halacha in the Torah that the first something grows in Israel, so the first 3 years, so you can't take the fruits because there's a certain bad energy on these fruits the first 3 years. And so the Zohar says that there were some people that they heard that idea and they twisted it, they skewed that idea, and they understood that there's something special about the fruit of the first 3 years, and they made it into an avodah zarah. And they said, like, oh, if you can't eat it, then it must be that it's holy, and like we can't eat it because it's God. So they turned the arla into something which is a deity. So that's why a person has to be very careful. What kinds of foundations they reveal. Okay, so what is Rebbe Nachman's teaching over here? What is his point? His point is the importance of foundations. Okay, the importance of foundations, and how the most important thing is the foundations, and the foundations is difficult, and because it's so difficult, so it's dangerous, and because it's so difficult, because it's so difficult, so that we have to appreciate the people that brought down these foundations, and so there's an interesting thing. The Rebbe Nachman himself said that Rebbe Nachman says in Sichot HaRan, later in the Sefer, he says, Kol HaTorah sheli kula hakdamas. All of my teachings, everything that I ever taught, it's all hakdamas. It's all introductions. Okay, which means like it's the foundations. Like I'm not telling you like everything you need to know. I'm just telling you just the spark notes. I'm just telling you just like the basic idea, and then you'll take that further. You should take this to further. And the truth is that he learned this idea from the Arizal. That the Arizal in his Sfarim Peretz Chaim, so the very first part of the Arizal's Torah in Kabbalah, he called it Shar HaHakdamot. This is the gate of introductions, like a large portion of Kabbalah. When you're learning Kabbalah, what are you learning? You're learning the introduction, right? It's the same thing with there's a sefer in Kabbalah called Ashlag. That Rav Ashlag's Chassidus, and they're like everything what they learn. Like it's like he called the sefer the Hakdamas. He called it introductions. Like that I'm just teaching introductions. That like through my introductions, then you'll be able to understand everything else. But like I want to teach you the introductions. So there's something very, very deep about this. There's something very meaningful about this. What?
I think it's terrifying.
What do you mean?
If the Kabbalah that we have now is just an introduction, and it's just a surface layer of what there really is behind it. So
let me explain what it means. What does it mean that what Rebbe Nachman was saying when the Arizal was saying that he's teaching you hakdamas? So what does it really mean? There's I like to say that a good class is a class that after this class you become wiser. Okay, what I mean that you're wiser, that you look at life differently. Okay, that you have a different mindset. You have a different frame of thought that something that you didn't just learn a piece of information that you didn't know before. That like there's a pasuk I didn't know it said that, now I know it says that. But I was looking at life like this, and now I'm realizing that there's a deeper way to look at life. That there's a different way to look at God. There's a different way to look at my soul. There's a different way to look at my marriage. There's a different way to look at my friendship. There's a different way to look at my possessions and my career. And there's a different way to look at anything. Like a different to have a different perspective. Okay, that's what it means to become wiser, and that's really what it means. Hakdama. Hakdama is that to change your mindset, to change your mentality. So that's what I think it means. That kol haTorah sheli hakdama. So it means that I'm not going to tell you. My point is not just to give you information. My point is to change the way that you look at life. And that's really what it means. That it's hard. It's hard to look at life in a new way because it requires being very, very determined, and it requires being a lamdan. You know, like it's a term like in yeshivas. That's like the biggest compliment is that somebody is a big lamdan. What's it mean, a big lamdan? It means that a big lamdan is not a person that learns a lot, and not a person that knows a lot. A big lamdan means that he knows that in any discussion, he knows how to get to the crux of the discussion. He knows that he learns a certain field, and he says, everything depends on this. Everything depends on this. And the real question here is the following. That's what it means to be a lamdan. So to learn life, to live life as a lamdan means that what is really the essence? Like a person who's not a lamdan, so before he gets married, so he says, yeah, get married looks fun, let's get married. And a lamdan, before he gets married, so he wants to I need to understand, what is marriage? What is marriage all about? Like what am I doing? Why does the world function like this? Like I see everybody does it, but who says? Maybe I want to understand the essence of this. I want to understand why it's like this. And that's how I'm going to build it the right way, because then I have the foundations. Then I have the foundations of what true marriage is really all about, and then I can build my marriage in a way that's going to not fall and not crumble, not be so dangerous. Because if you don't have the sharashim, if you don't have the foundations, then the building that you build is going to collapse. And that's why everything in life is all dependent on the foundations. So he says that it's difficult. It's difficult to live life as a lamdan, and it's difficult to bring down foundations, and especially because for the most part, so we have a way that we look at life. It could be superficial, and it's the same way that the people around us are living life. So it requires a certain ability to be able to go against the current, and to be able to think for ourselves, and to say like I don't care that that's what everybody's saying, but I need to understand this. I need to, and I'm okay revealing a new way of looking at life. Like when Newton was creating the laws of physics, it's like there was a new way when Galileo was revealing that the Earth is the center, that sun is the center of the universe. So that's a new way of thinking. And so you have to be ready to say something new. And so there's a difficulty anytime you're going to change a way of thinking. So then you're going to go against the pressure of the fact that everybody's going to think you're crazy. Whenever you're going to be revolutionary, so then there's this difficulty that everybody's going to think that why can't you just be like us? Why can't you just be like everybody else? Why do you always have to be different? Always have to be dafka. Always have to be the opposite. So there's a certain difficulty of thinking against the current, thinking against what's popular, and that's really what's necessary to come with a foundation. To come with a foundation requires that you're not depending on the foundations that you were given, and that's really the hard part. So now his second example when he talks about foundations is he talks about the fruit growing in different countries. That that if you would have the right foundations, if you have the right roots, then you would be able you'll be able to grow any fruits in any country. So I take this as a metaphor. That I think that what he's saying is that there's a pasuk. This pasuk that it contrasts the pasuk in the beginning of Tehillim. It contrasts between the tzaddik and the rasha. That a tzaddik, so it's eitz shasol palgubayim. That it's like a tree that he's mamish very, very rooted in the ground, and so like nothing can shake him, nothing can move him. He's very, very grounded, and David Melech says loiken harishayim, and the rishayim, they're the opposite. Kim kamoitz asher titvena ruach. They're like straw. They're just like that. The wind, a small wind comes, and they're just flying crazy. So David Melech is contrasting the difference between tzaddik and the rasha is a person who has roots and a person who doesn't have roots. That a person like the tzaddik is grounded. Tzaddik he knows where he's coming from. He knows why he's doing what he's doing. He knows that he's well built. He's a well built individual, and because he's well built, so then he doesn't wherever he goes, he's gonna blossom. He's gonna flourish because he has his roots. If the only reason why you're doing what you're doing is because that's what everybody else is doing, so then the moment that you go to someplace else, then you're gonna drop it. Whereas if you're well built, you have the foundations, you have the roots, so then you could grow the most delicious fruits anywhere. You can be in the North Pole, and glad you understood my reference. That. And you could still be the tzaddik ador because you have. I mean, you have to work about Shabbos, but the Santa doesn't give Shabbos, right? So you remember my story from Rav Weinberger that Santa is Jewish. So when you have the right roots, then you can go anywhere. You can go anywhere, and you'll still be able to grow these fruits. And that's what I think he's saying. That when a person that's grounded, a person that's rooted, a person that really is well built, so then he doesn't have to be. I'm not dependent on anyone. I'm not dependent on any place. I don't need to have my minion. I need to have my friend group. I don't need to have my parents. I don't. Wherever I go, I know that I'm going to flourish. I know that because I have my roots, so I can grow the most delicious fruits of my avodas Hashem, and anywhere. I'm not dependent on anything because I have the roots. So now then he says that there's some foundations that are dangerous. The foundations are dangerous because they can be misconstrued and misinterpreted. And he brings this example from Arla, that the Zohar says that there was a certain idea that the Zohar brought down, and because of that, so that it's like the Torah brought down this idea, and that because of that people took it as a Zohar. So I was thinking, what is Rebbe Nachman trying to say about this? So I thought of a couple of things. First of all, we have to be careful about sharing ideas that aren't accepted halacha l'maaseh. And this is I heard from a rabbi in America that there was a rabbi that gave a shiur on why you can't use a bathtub as a mikveh. And he was it was good, this whole complicated shiur to explain why. And so in the context of the shiur, so he was mentioning different ideas that a person could say, maybe if that's true, so maybe you could make a, and so after you have the shiur, so the rav of the shiur, or the rav of the shul, told him that you did a horrible thing, that people are going to come out of shiur, and they heard I heard it's not so bad to use a bathtub as mikveh, and you could there could be horrible, tragic results from such a thing, because a little bit of information is extremely dangerous. So if a person hears a certain lenient opinion and doesn't hear the fact that actually that opinion is rejected, that opinion is not is not how we practice, is not how the Gemara comes out. And an idea that he doesn't explain to him how exactly to interpret this idea, how to apply this idea. So a little bit of information can be very tragic. And so, like from halacha, a person has to be careful how he expresses himself. Like when it comes to, like you could say something that, like, I heard that some rabbi say it's such and such, and you don't realize that the person you're talking to is going to take it at face value and say, okay, it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me, and so that's one thing. I think another thing that has been spoken about in Sfarim is that there's ideas, there's spiritual ideas that, when misinterpreted, can bring real danger and real havoc. One of these ideas is something that the Nefesh HaChaim talks about. That Nefesh HaChaim, the Rechav Loshner, he's the student of the Vilna Gaon, so he was complaining about that the Hasidim of his time, that they were very obsessed with the concept that Ein Adam Milvado. They were very obsessed with the fact that there is nothing besides Hashem, and that everything Hashem encompasses everything. There is no place and no experience and no activity that could possibly be void of Hashem's presence. So Nefesh HaChaim says that if you're going to take that to its natural result, to its natural next step, so then you're going to say, well, how could it doesn't make sense that you're not allowed to think about Torah in the restroom, because if Hashem is everywhere, so Hashem is in the restroom too. So like, how could it? It's not, there's no such thing as unholy. No such thing as, and that's against halacha. And like, it gets even worse because if like the Shabtai Tzvi. So one of the things that he did was that he wanted to show that Hashem is actually in everything and every activity, and he wanted to show that I can purify and sanctify even Averis. And he would do a horrible Averis. He would commit adultery, and he would, quote unquote, like, think about Hashem being present in his committing adultery, and he was saying that, yes, I am now revealing that Hashem is even dwelling among the Jewish people even when they sin, and that's tragic. That's against the Ten Commandments. That's going against Torah. That's going against being Jewish.
Well, if a foundation is incredibly necessary and it's also very dangerous, how do we build a foundation? What's the correct way to do it?
With caution. To do it with caution. He said, like, his point is not to reveal things. His point is that you have to be cautious about the way you reveal things. And so a person could take this idea that Hashem is everything, everywhere and everything, and say, like, okay, so I'm gonna be Mekadesh Averis. I'm gonna be Mekadesh Averis. I heard this crazy story that there was somebody working in the Chevra Kadisha that. Apparently, people who work in the Chevra Kadisha, they have some like agreement, they're sworn like to secrecy. That there's like a lot of like crazy stories, and they're not allowed to tell the stories that they say. And but somehow this story got out that there was a guy working in the Chevra Kadisha that he was burying somebody in Israel. In Israel, they bury without a coffin, and it was a really weird thing that as soon as you put him they put him into the ground. So then there was like 10 snakes that like started attacking him. They started like eating at his body, and he saw that they were specifically like aimed at his eyes. They were like pecking at his eyes, and like he tried to like the whole Chevra Kadisha, they tried to get rid of these snakes. Let's not cover the mace and like they didn't succeed. And like at some point, like they just gave up and just buried him like that. And like it was the weirdest thing. Like he never saw such a thing in his life, and he and so he did some research. Like tell me, like they told like people that knew him, like did he have any particular any unusual habits, any unusual lifestyles? And so somebody told him that he lived on the beach, and he would stand on his he would stand on his porch and he would stare at all the women in bathing suits, and he was saying that he would tell people when they asked him, like, "Are you sure you're allowed to do that?" Like he would say, "Yeah, I'm fixing them, I'm rectifying them." That's what he said. And that's what he said, and that's how like so he was like, that was like Shabtai Tzvi. That was like to an Avera, and it's like, yeah, I'm bringing Hashem into Averas, and like I'm fixing the world, I'm fixing all the tumah in the world, and like
using certain things that are brachas.
Hashem should save us from all the tumas in the world, and so this is you're taking a true idea of Ein Od Milvado, you're taking a true idea that Hashem is everywhere and everything, and to take it to a twisted, evil way. So that's mamish something that is dangerous. And a third thing that I think Rebbe Nachman could be referring to is that there's a Torah from the Ishbitzer. That there's like the Ishbitzer Rebbe, so the Meir Shilach. So he's known as a controversial figure. He's known as a controversial Torah, and one of the things that's controversial about him is that he was always into speaking goodly about all the things that seem bad. Like he would say that Zimri, when he was doing an Avera with he was really a big tzaddik. And really, he was trying to, and like his basic philosophy of understanding Torah is that everything is really Ratzon Hashem. That even when there's Averas, that like Hashem wanted you to do this Avera, because if Hashem wouldn't have wanted you to do the Avera, then you wouldn't have been able to do it. There's actually a kedusha that comes out of the Avera that does, because ultimately everything is Ratzon Hashem. And so, like a person could hear this. A person could hear this, and now it's good to hear this when a person is beating themselves up, and a person made a mistake, and he's he's depressed, and he can't get out of bed because he feels like such a failure, feels like such a loser. And then you tell him, listen, if it happened, it was Ratzon Hashem. So get over it. Just like Hashem wanted you to be there, and Hashem wanted you to overcome it. That's good. But a person could misinterpret this idea, and he could say, "Oh, so then if everything is Ratzon Hashem, so then I don't have a responsibility." And like, Hashem, if you don't want me to eat at this non-kosher restaurant, so you better make sure that they're out of cheeseburgers today. And it's on you. And if they have cheeseburgers today, then obviously you wanted me to eat cheeseburgers today. And a person could twist what the Ishbitzer is saying into a horrible place. So Rebbe Nachman is saying you actually have to be careful. Like if you're going to talk about these ideas around simple-minded people that don't have the nuance of understanding like when it's meant to be said and when it's not meant to be said, then it's actually a very dangerous thing. Okay? So now the basic theme, what Rebbe Nachman is really teaching us over here about Shabashim, about the foundations. So I think that there's an overarching idea that he's trying to tell us over here, and that is that we need to make sure that we are actually well built, and we have to make sure that our foundations are the way they need to be, and this is very all encompassing. That I think the most basic foundation of a yid is emunah. The most basic foundation of the way that a Jew approaches life is that what is my core belief? My core beliefs are my basis, are my foundation. So a person that doesn't really have core beliefs, so then they're pretty just like wishy-washy. They're not grounded. They're not grounded. And there's a story that I heard from Rebbe Nachman that he was a big tzaddik that lived in Bnei Brak, the Rosh Yeshiva of Chibin Yeshiva. So he had a story that goes like this: that he once his watch fell and it stopped working. So he took it to the watch store, and he asked to fix it, and so the watchmaker told him that no, it's everything's good. It just needed a new battery. So Rebbe Ram said, "What do you mean it needs a battery? Like, you expect me to believe that the moment the moment that it hit the ground, that punk, then its time came. That it was like the battery just. So the watchmaker explained to him that let me explain that it was towards the end. It was towards the end of its life. It was very, very low battery. And so at that point, it had just enough battery that it could keep on ticking, but the amount of energy that it requires, that once it stopped ticking, to start again, it didn't have that much. So of course, it's not that its time came at the moment that it fell on the ground, but like it fell on the ground so that it stopped for a moment. And because it stopped for a moment, so then it needed a greater amount of energy in order to start again, and that much it didn't have. So Rebbe heard this, so he was amazed by the idea, and he said that this is exactly what happens with emunah. That you have people that they have very, very little emunah. So they have just enough emunah that they can just keep on going on autopilot. But at the moment that something happens, some crisis happens, that they need to just recenter. They need to oh my gosh, what's happening? How could this be? Where am I? And at that moment that they're just lost and they need to center themselves, they need to ground themselves, then because their emunah was so small, so then they can't recenter. And then they lose their emunah. But it's not that they lost their emunah, it's that they never really had emunah. They had so little emunah that it was only enough to go on autopilot, but they weren't enough emunah to just restart when everything stops for a moment. And this is the same thing with the Holocaust, that Rabbi Lau said from Tel Aviv, that there's nobody that lost their emunah because of the Holocaust. The people that had emunah before the Holocaust came out with even more emunah. The people that didn't have emunah before the Holocaust came out with even less emunah. But and there's people that they had almost no emunah, and so that's fake emunah. Those people, so then that because they had stopped for a second, because there was this moment of what the heck, so they didn't have enough to move, so then they lost their emunah. But a person that had real emunah will never lose their emunah because of a Holocaust, because of some tragedy. So, and this is the unfortunate reality of a lot of what are called nowadays dat lashim. In Israel, they call them dat lashim. In America, it's like the OTD, like off the derech kids. That a lot of kids. So a lot of times it's because of trauma. But in a lot of communities, so kids get older and they stop being religious. And you ask them why do you stop being religious? And they say, because I just didn't care. Just didn't care, which means they were when they were in their community, when they were in school, so they had very little emunah, they had very little basis, they had very little foundations, and so they cared enough to do it as long as that's what everybody else is doing. But at the moment that they were just just out for themselves, so then fending for themselves, so then they just didn't care, meaning that their school and their parents completely failed them. They never gave them a foundation of what am I doing in this world, and so without a foundation, so then it's just everything crumbles. So this is why it's so important to the most important thing that we can be learning is what is the foundation of my life. That's what all of my classes are about, how can I really be a real Jew? It's I find this so much infinitely more valuable than teaching somebody how to keep Shabbos, teaching somebody what happens when your milk spoon falls into your fleshik pot, because this is the foundation. This is once you have this, then you can go anywhere. Then you can then you're not dependent. And if you don't have the basis, so then everything else is irrelevant. So that's with life itself. With life itself, we need to really make sure that we have foundations. And when it comes to marriage, some people their marriage doesn't have a foundation. They don't know what it is. They think, for example, that you can build a marriage on love. And love is not a foundation of a marriage. Love is something that develops once you have a foundation. But the foundation of a marriage is trust and respect. Trust and respect, they go together, because I can only trust somebody if I know that they respect me. Right? So that once there's mutual respect in a relationship, then you can have trust. And once you have trust, so then you have a foundation. right? And so if there's no trust, then you can be madly in love with each other, but there's no foundation. So there's like, as soon as something happens, and of course things happen, like that's life. In life things happen. So at the moment things happen, so if there's no foundation, so then everything crumbles. And so if a person doesn't know how to build a foundation in marriage, so then like they can, like on the outside it looks like they're like the most loving couple, but like it's nothing. There's no base. There's no base. It's like that's the danger. The danger of building buildings, because you don't know how to build the foundations. Because that's mamish what happens. It's the same thing with raising children. That a person thinks that a person thinks to himself, like, what is raising children all about? I need to teach my child how to function in life. I need to teach him how to keep Shabbos. I need to teach him how to do homework. I need to teach him how to brush his teeth. And those things are important, but that's not the foundation. And there's parents that completely miss out what is the foundation that a parent is responsible to give his children. Every parent needs to give the children a feeling of belonging. That you're part of something. You belong. You belong. We spoke about this like about a month ago about attachment theory, about if a parent doesn't give the child the feeling that I'm secure, that I belong, then they'll never be able to stand on their own 2 feet. Right? So every parent needs to give over to the children the feeling that they belong, that they're part of something bigger. They're not just random, they're just floaters. They need to give their children the feeling that they're protected, the fact that you're okay. You're like, I've got you. I can't feel safe in the world unless I was taught that I'm safe. If my parents are always going to tell me, yeah, so with the Wild West out there, then I'm going to live life full of anxiety, and I'll never be able to get anywhere. I'll never be able to do anything. And last, but certainly not least, that parents need to give over to their children the feeling that they are valuable, that you are worthy, that you have value. And there's something that so many parents are negligent about this, and there's hopefully that their friends and their teachers will tell them start later in life, but like you never know, and you also never know how much the kids will believe you, will believe them if once their parents told them enough times that you're a piece of garbage, you're such a loser, you're such a failure. So like it could be it's Rahman al-Zan, it's Ma'asim B'chol Yom that kids are scarred for life with these feelings of lack of worth, and nothing that you're going to teach them is worth anything if you don't give them the foundations. And this is certainly like raising kids and build. Like these are all building. This is when Rebbe Nachman talks about the danger of building, the danger of building, where we build homes, we build families, and we build ourselves. And so, like that, in every element of building. So Rebbe Nachman is encouraging us to always focus on the foundation, to always focus on what is the essence, and to appreciate the fact that when we invest in the foundation, then it's really going to grow exponentially from there. It's going to be able to blossom. It's going to not be dependent on where you are. It's not going to crumble, and it's going to be independent. So I bless us all that we should be able to mamish to find the foundations of reality, and find the foundations of our very being, and to be lamdanim, to be deep people, to be deep thinkers that are able to take a step back and figure out what is actually the foundations of life, what is the foundations of everything, and not be afraid to bring new mentalities, not to be afraid to realize that the way of thinking that I was using until now is actually not serving me, and to be able to bring down a new hagdama, a new yisoid, a new foundation, a new core belief, a new way of looking at life, and b'ezrat Hashem, that by reassessing all of our foundations, so all of the buildings that we will build will be mamish very strong and very beautiful and very big.